Set Phasers, a highly illogical Star Trek podcast.
Well, hello, Mr. Bamise.
And hello, Mr. Hello, Stevie.
Hi. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Happy weekend. Happy new Trek.
It does. It's new weekend, new Trek Saturday.
Continuing tour for you.
The tour continues. Lovely Los Angeles, California.
When we were chatting pre-episode, I even forgot to ask you where you were.
Yeah, I wouldn't have remembered until probably just now.
Bless you.
I don't remember where we were yesterday, and I couldn't tell you where we'll be tomorrow. But we're out here in America, 3 hours behind you, and I'm in an attic, unair-conditioned, spare green room, dressing room area.
Mm-hmm.
But nonetheless, we shall discuss Season 2, Episode 8 of Lower Decks, entitled I, Excretus, which is very good.
Rude.
Very rude.
Indeed.
For this episode, today's stardate is stardate 328102.1. And yeah, we got a very good episode on our hands. Very entertaining.
One might argue it was the best of the season so far.
I'd say it's right up there. I kind of really like the collector one, but this one is chock full of Easter eggs, as you might say.
Oh yes, this was a fun one for me.
Yeah, wall to wall. So let's get into it. So we can get into it.
Let's run it down.
It's time to run it down. Can you run it down for me? Tell me what just happened. Can you run it down for me? Oh yeah, certainly. I'd love to run it down. So basically, it goes like this. The Lower Decks crew, they're out there doing a spacewalk on a satellite. Cerritos gets this distress call from this other ship that's caught in a time loop. So they go to warp immediately, and they leave the Lower Decks crew out there for 6 hours. And then when they get picked up later, they're freezing, and they're almost out of oxygen. The Mariner's super upset about having been left behind. But Freeman is trying to tell her, listen, it's all fine. And Ransom's like, it wouldn't have happened if they had followed protocols and signed out their magnet boots. But Mariner's saying, no, it's because the Lower Decks are all expendable. You don't care about us. And Freeman wants everyone to be on their best behavior because later that day, a Starfleet drill instructor will be showing up to test them, to test the crew, to their levels of readiness and Starfleetiness, I guess. So the drill instructor shows up. They are Pandronian. Apparently, they can split their bodies into 3 parts. This drill instructor's name is Shari Yin Yem.
Mm-hmm.
And gets people kind of fired up. It's kind of doing like a team building kind of consultant kind of vibe. A little, for those of us who have been in those situations, it could be a little something. I kind of got it. Mariner seems super bored by it because it's like, ugh, not this stuff again. But everyone else is kind of super into it, and she's splitting herself into 3 parts and stuff. Anyway, what they're going to do is they're going to get into these tiny simulator pods, each of them individually, and they're going to have an experience basically, or a simulation based on what other Starfleet crews have experienced.
Mm-hmm.
There are a certain amount of points for doing a good job. The scores are public, and the real kicker is they're inverting the ranks. So senior staff is going to be Lower Decks, and Lower Decks is going to be senior staff. Captain Freeman is nonplussed. Obviously, Mariner and the Lower Decks crew are super happy. Tendi gets to do some scenarios as senior medical officer. Rutherford's going to get to be chief engineer. And Boimler and Mariner get to be captains. Yeah. And the senior staff just has to go lie in their beds for a while.
And Mike McMahon gets to play with almost any Trek trope he wants.
Every single, well, that's the beauty of rolling out 5,000 different
simulator pods, as you can be like, check this out. So Mariner goes in first. She gets a mirror universe encounter where she must infiltrate the Terran Empire and find a way home. Everyone there is everyone on the crew, but they all have beards and they're all evil. They talk about torturing and being horny, just whatever mirror universe is the opposite of Star Trek. So it's just pain and sex. And Mariner has some trouble finding allies, so she decides she's going to try to take over the ship and dismantle the Terran Empire from the inside. But the program tells her that she's going to lose points from deviating from the specific mission. So she's like, fine, she'll go on with the normal thing. She runs into evil Boimler with his beard, who's been trying to figure out a way to impress or kill the captain to get on a more sinister ship. Mariner salutes with the wrong hand. She gets apprehended and fails the test.
Because, of course, in the mirror universe, your dominant hand is also reversed. Bonkers.
Because it's a mirror, baby. Tendi, meanwhile, gets a simulation called Medical Ethics. And she's got a paralyzed Klingon who wants an honorable death. Of course, Tendi is like, listen, I've sworn to do no harm. And she gets points deducted immediately. And then she's like, well, I guess if I have to pass this test, she takes out a hypospray and she's like, let's send you to Stovokor. But he wants to be killed with his ceremonial blade. But Tendi doesn't want to cause him pain. More points get deducted. The Klingon tries to grab the knife to get her to stab him with it. He falls off and the other doctors rush in. And he's supposed to die honorably, but because Klingons have a bajillion backup organs and giant hearts, he winds up living. And it goes against everything that the Klingon stands for, and Tendi fails her test. Mariner's taking another test. She does Old West Planet, and she has to basically survive on a lawless frontier where she's a wanted criminal, even though she's the captain of a starship. She tries to ride a horse. The horse throws her off and pummels her, and she fails. Rutherford gets a scenario called The Good of the Many, where essentially the warp core has breached and is about to explode, and he's got to go in. The radiation will kill him, but he's the chief engineer, so he's going to try to do it. But when he tries to open the door's too hot. He can't open it fast enough, and the ship explodes, and he fails. Boimler, meanwhile, has a Borg encounter. All he has to do is resist the Borg.
All he has to do is resist the Borg.
But listen, he's read all about the Borg. He's super happy about it. So he gets there, he does all the Borg stuff. He shoots them a couple times, adjusts the frequency, shoots them a couple more times, doesn't work. Fights a bunch of them, goes through a chute, finds the baby Borg, gets out in an escape sphere, and he gets a 79%, a total success. But that's not good enough for Brad Boimler. So he tells the computer he wants to go again. This time he saves the Borg babies, and he gets an 83%. And then he goes, let's do it again. And then he saves the babies and like 2 Borgs. And he gets an 84%. And obviously, a vicious cycle has started there for poor Brad Boimler. Mariner's final test that she's able to take is something called, quote, naked time. And it is essentially a disease or parasite or something that causes the whole crew to lose their inhibitions. And so she's on the Cerritos, essentially goes to the what we're calling 7 forward, because it's a smaller ship, and I've decided it's on the 7th level. And everyone's naked and sexy and doing naked, sexy stuff and all sweating and stuff. And it's disgusting for Mariner. And she basically opens up an airlock and sends herself out and fails that one as well. So it doesn't go super well for anyone except for Boimler. And later on, the Lower Decks crews are all eating, and they all failed their drills. And Boimler is still doing his drill. It's been hours, one would assume. And we get a flash into that. He's still saving the Borg. He's like saving all the Borg. He's blowing up the cube. And he gets like a 94%, and he goes again. Meanwhile, Mariner and the Lower Decks crew sort of admit, like, hey, maybe it's harder being senior staff than we thought. And the senior staff have basically been spending this whole time in the area of the ship, not in a simulation, where the Lower Decks crew normally hangs out, and they're just enjoying the fact that they're like, why did we ever level up? Because we get to hang out here. And I think Freeman at one point says, the most strenuous thing I did was stand at the back of a banquet today. But then they get a red alert, and they're sent into a simulation called Klingon Encounter, and their only mission is to, quote, support their commanders. And so they're brought into a Klingon encounter, things are blowing up, and the ship is shaking and stuff, and they're told to stack crates, which of course they all have trouble doing because they've been in command for so long. And then they're told there's a queue on the ship, and then the Jem'Hadar show up, and they try to stack some crates, and they do a pretty poor job, and they fail. So command staff fails as well. They're given one last chance, a final joint exercise on the simulation on their own bridge, still with the inverted crew, and basically it's called Escape from Space Dock. And the the description is steal the Cerritos from Space Dock and use it to save Spock on the Genesis planet, which has got to be the most obvious Easter egg of all time. Mariner immediately sinks into the role of captain. She has Ramsey make some coffee. She has Shax send her out, and so on and so forth. Captain Freeman is at the helm, and Mariner, when she sees Shax stretching, she has a flashback of him naked and basically starts to sort of freak out. And Freeman starts to make fun of her for having been pommeled by a horse. Pummeled, not pommeled. You put a pommel on a horse, you don't get pummeled by it. Horses wear saddles that have pommels. And if you don't treat them right, they pummel you. And so anyway, they start fighting. And basically, before even getting out of Space Dock, they crash and explode the ship. So just an epic failure, even in the joint exercise. So later on, Mariner and her mother, Captain Freeman, are having drinks. And they're sort of like willing to admit to each other that, you know what? It's hard being senior staff. It's hard to know what calls to make. And it's hard being lower decks and not knowing exactly what's going on. And they basically agree that, like, you know what? It's tough. But as they look around, they say, like, oh, well, you know what? I think maybe the actual drill was meant to make us empathize with each other. And they're like, oh, that drill instructor, she was so brilliant. I want to go shake her hand. So they go to find the drill instructor. And they're like, we figured it out. You're so great. The whole test, the real drill was to make us get along with each other, understand each other. It was team building. And the drill instructor basically laughs in their faces, stands up and laughs in their faces maniacally. That wasn't the plan at all. The plan was failure. Apparently, this was a gambit for this drill instructor to keep her job, because when she works on the bigger ships, they all pass with flying colors. So she needed a ship that she knew was slightly dysfunctional, and enter Cerritos. And she rigged the tests, the drills, so that they couldn't possibly pass, but also knowing that Cerritos would do some failure stuff. And the whole plan is, now it'll be like, we do need to still have these drills. She's going to send this information to Starfleet, and Starfleet will like reassign the whole crew because they're non-functional. And she says, as soon as I send these results, everything's over for you guys, right? But Boimler is still doing his drill, still trying to get 100%. So that means the crew can still take new tests. The test is not over, the overall test. So they calm down to Boimler and they say, even though he's about to get 100, because he's like taught the Borg Queen empathy and blown up the ship and all this other stuff, they say, you got to stay in your simulation because we have to turn this whole thing around. So Boimler goes back in, and Freeman and Mariner go running for the bridge, and the drill instructor tries to talk them out of it. Freeman has Tendi run a check for any dangerous anomalies in real life. This is real life, not a simulation. And they find lots of crystalline anomalies doing crystalline anomaly things. So they go directly for it. And the instructor's like, whatever, I don't care. But I think, Freeman's whole plan is like, when you see it in real life, it's not going to be as easy. They find a crystalline entity. It's got unstable nebular radiation. The instructor does get freaked out. The ship goes in, transphasic energy, electromagnetic resonance belts, all that stuff. They barely manage to get away, and the drill instructor's basically like, okay, I think I would get out of there. But then Freeman's like, let's do another one. And they find a black hole and they go towards it. And basically Captain Freeman's like, I'm going to do this until you let us change our scores because you are a liar. While this is happening, Boimler is being torture assimilated by the Borg and Borg Queen in the simulation, and but it does work, and the drill instructor changes the scores, and Captain Freeman grabs a tablet, and Mariner calms down to Boimler that he can exit, but Boimler is no longer Brad Boimler. He's become Excretus of Borg. And I actually thought that's how they were going to end it. I was like, this would be a sweet ending if he truly thought he'd become Borg in his head. Anyway, they open up the pod. They get him out. He's just got bags under his eyes. He failed the test completely, got like an 8%, but he managed to save the crew. We find out that the instructors, Shari and Yem, resigned from Starfleet, citing on-the-job stress. And everyone is happy. The senior staff, having learned some empathy for the lower decks, remembering what it was like, bring in a new replicator for the lower decks that can make more than one slice of pizza at a time, and can also make something with crunchy cheese on top. I don't know. I hate cheese, so I blocked that out of my memory. But that is the end of episode 8, season 2 of Lower Decks. Excretus.
Ta-da.
Perfect. Okay.
Yes.
Well, I mean, listen, we better get into it because this is going to be a lot. It's got to be a little longer. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back
You
to
didn't sing
Set
Easter
Phasers.
eggs. You always have to sing Easter eggs.
What's that?
You have
I
to
was
sing
about
the
to.
Easter eggs.
I sing Easter eggs?
Yeah.
Easter eggs.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Set Phasers, your morning drive time show. We go once again to Stevie Mann's on the ground at Easter Egg Central. Stevie, what have you got for us today?
Well, hi there, Honky. Hi there. How you doing? Good to be here, as always. The traffic on the M5 is doing pretty well today.
But no, seriously, the Star Trek Lower Decks episode 8, Excretus was filled to the brim with Easter eggs. It was a veritable basket, if you will, of Easter eggs. So many, in fact, I don't think we could go through all of them, but some of my favorite.
Hit 'em.
Let's just pick a couple. So I think, obviously, the favorite ones were just the ones where, like, we're going into the hologram of the drills. And actually, something that I liked, and like there were a couple that were just like deep cuts. So the Pandronian was, I thought we'd never seen that before, but I have not watched the animated series. So that I discovered.
Yes.
So she, Shari Yin was also seen from the animated series. I think it was the episode called Bem. Had you seen that one?
I remembered Pandronians, but is it the same Sherry Yin Yam?
I presume so.
Same character? I didn't know that. Wow. Okay. Cool.
But yes, Shari Yin.
Been some time since I watched. Those are very trippy. The animated series is out of control.
We need to do that drunk once. That could be quite a fun podcast.
Totally.
One of my favorite Easter eggs was Alice Kriege played the Borg Queen. So the original Borg Queen from TNG played, had a little cameo in this episode.
She was great.
Yeah, it was, but it was just done really well. It wasn't like they didn't shoehorn it in. It was a nice little cameo throwback. And I love the fact that we can do this, like still, 30 years on from the original track, we're like, we can call back to the original Borg Queen, which is pretty cool. And
also, she did the whole thing from First Contact, which we recently watched, where the scan she blows on Boimler's skin.
Oh, yeah, creepy. No, she plays the creepy, sexy queen incredibly well.
Yes.
And always will. But now we have a new Borg Queen.
We do. In season 2 of Picard.
Indeed. Anyway, and then possibly my last favorite, but not in any particular order, was Mariner's sex episode.
Oh my god!
Because it was just really funny, and it kind of called back to there were almost 2 Trek episodes. The first one is Naked Times. That's the original series.
Yes.
And I think it's the Naked Now TNG episode. It's early first season.
Yes.
Pre the beard.
Tasha and Data get it on.
Data, yeah.
She says, "Do you have?" I forget what she says, and he says, "I have all."
Are you fully
parts."
functional?
Yeah, he says, "I am fully functional." I am fully functional. Yes.
Yes.
Star Trek does like to trot out a suddenly everyone's super into sex episode.
Yeah. I don't know why. What about you? Did you have any Easter eggs that you thought were particularly fun?
I mean, obviously, I loved the needs of the many one for Rutherford, because that's Wrath of Khan, and the whole thing. And I love that Rutherford was like, "I'm going in there no matter what," but then he burned his hand, because I do remember that Spock had very thick oven mitts on when he did that. And of course the Klingon who wants to die, and how that would be a whole episode of Star Trek, would be like, should we let him die? Because we're so Hippocratic and they're so whatever. I liked that.
That was a TNG episode, I think. Going back
Yes.
to, remember when Worf got paralyzed, I think, and wanted an honorable death.
But that's when we find out that he has like 4 hearts or whatever. But I did like it that the backup organs save him, and the doctors say time of life 900 hours, and the Klingon goes no. Anyway, yeah, those were probably my favorite thing. I liked that in the Klingon attack, there's a Q on the ship in the Jem'Hadar, which is a big Deep Space Nine thing, which is basically all the badass people. That the worst thing that could happen on a Starfleet ship would be Klingons, Q, Jem'Hadar. The only thing worse would be Borg.
Yeah. Although we didn't see Q in this one, but he was referenced.
Yes.
And did you remember the guy like came back like past the cargo bay with a Robin Hood hat
Yes, he
on?
was dressed as Robin Hood. He said,
yeah,
you guys
nice
see Q
little...
go through here?
Which was a throwback to Cupid, I think was the TNG episode.
Yes.
I loved the Q episodes because it was just Jean-Luc Picard being very pissed off.
Very upset.
Most of the time.
Yeah. Well, he doesn't like children, and Q is like a big child. It's a perfect foil.
Yes, that's a good point.
A big, all-powerful child. And basically Q, I think Q like always just wants to be scolded by Jean-Luc Picard, basically. He has to be scolded
and Janeway.
into leaving. And, oh yes, well, Jane, that's like Freudian psychosexual at that point. Because he's like into her, and he's trying to seduce her and stuff, and he brings his kid and all that weird. He gets super weird, Janeway.
Aunt Kathy.
Aunt Kathy. Oh my God.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Those are the Easter eggs I most enjoyed.
Well, thanks there, Aki. So, as I say, the traffic's looking good on the M25 now. So, back to you in the studio.
Fantastic. Those of you on the M25, you'll be home soon enough. Thanks once again for tuning in. And up next, Quotable Moments.
Quotable moments.
Well, I have a few written down here. I'd say a nice innocent one is when Mariner bumps into evil Shax in the mirror universe, and Shax says, "Who dareth to bump into me?" And Mariner says, "I dareth. I double dog dareth," which I very much enjoyed.
Yeah.
And I also enjoyed when Mariner and Freeman are commiserating later about how they understand each other, have hard work to do on lower decks and senior staff. Freeman says, "I guess the carpet's always grayer on the other side of the ship."
Yes, that was a good one.
Starfleet.
Always grayer.
With their gray carpets. So gray. And then the last one I had was the super ridiculous, disgusting one, but it did make me laugh out loud. Evil Billups and Evil Rutherford in the Mirror Universe. And Evil Billups says, "Nothing makes me hornier than torturing someone. I'm horny all the time." And Evil Rutherford says, "And being horny always gets me in the mood to torture." So stupid.
And then he says, like, the cycle.
Yeah, you could lose,
we could lose an entire day in that cycle.
But that's so Mirror.
Yes, exactly. That's why it was so clever, because obviously Billups is our asexual / virgin prince from some weird Earth colony.
And I love that they all had beards. I thought that was just so great.
Of course. And like Brad's chest hair.
Chest hair
chest hair.
and I think I should have put this in Easter eggs, because when Mariner gets trampled by the horse, and Mariner's character keeps saying like, "Horses love me," whatever. Tawny Newsome, the actress who plays Mariner, actually grew up riding horses. She's like a horse aficionado. So I thought that was
true.
A cute,
imitating life.
Yes,
or
indeed.
Life imitating art.
Well, yes. Neither Tawny nor Mariner would ever get thrown from a horse and then trampled. Anyway, that's not really a quote. It's just a very nerdy thing that I happen to know.
Yeah, because Freeman said to Mariner, "Hey, all those horse lessons I picked for."
Yeah, and well, there's a great episode of the Star Trek podcast where Captain Freeman, Don, I forgot her last name.
Don Lewis.
And also Tawny's mother are on the same episode. And they discussed the horse riding at some point. In any case, it was a great ep. A lot of great stuff. We only have like 2 episodes left before this thing moseys on over the hill. But we'll get into that next time.
Next time on Set Phasers.
Yes,
That was
next time
almost
on
the same.
Very good. Next time on
It's like
Set
me doing
Phasers.
quotable moments.
Fantastic quotable next time moments. We will discuss Lower Decks episode 9 of season 2, and we'll see what crazy climax and denouement there is in store for us. I'm sure it will be something absolutely absurd. If you enjoyed listening to this program, you can listen to all of our episodes wherever you get your podcast from, and we put out new episodes every Monday wherever you get said podcasts.
Indeed. And if you want to follow us, we are on the Instagram. We are at Set Phasers and at Set Phasers Podcast. I had a rather funny Worf meme this week, which I was
Very
rather proud
good.
of.
It was
Thank
very
you very
good.
much. Thank you very much.
Hashtag
Meme Game Strong.
Hashtag Meme Game Strong. And if you'd like to support our podcast, our continuing mission to discover what Star Trek has in store for us, you can patronize us. We can take it by going to patreon.com/setphasers and signing up there for a little monthly thing. You can hang out with us sometimes and do cool stuff and get cool perks and all kinds of stuff.
We do Netflix oh no, I can never say that. We do Netflix watch parties. You can get access.
Romulan Warrior Nuns.
Killer Romulan Warrior Nun. And you can also get exclusive Patreon-only access to the video episodes of these podcasts if you want to see our lovely faces where we like see each other and make funny faces to each other.
We
So
make a lot of funny faces.
yeah, and you get early access to the episodes as well.
What? They get
so
early
join us
access?
there. Yes, they
That's
get early access.
crazy.
Did you not know this?
We shouldn't be giving them early access. That's too much. Stevie, it's too much.
Sorry.
That's too
sorry.
good.
I'll have to rein it in.
It's too good of an offer. You know what? I take it
It
back.
is,
Do
yeah.
not support us on Patreon. We're giving away too much.
Oh boy. Is it me?
I think it's you. Yeah.
Okay. Well, until next time, I am Stevie Mans.
And I am Pandronian, and I'm splitting my body into 3 parts. And this has been Set Phasers, a highly illogical Star Trek podcast.
You are the killer triple threat, Aki. Computer, end program.